So getting into it, Hodinkee.
Yes.
Shout out to our friends and family over at Hodinkee.
Yes.
Recently sold Crown and Caliber.
Yes.
Now, when the news originally dropped, they didn't announce that they had sold, this brand. It was a bit of a cryptic message on part of the brand, and then Ben Clymer wrote an article talking about returning to the good days at Hodinkee and sort of saying that, long gone will be the days where we are trying to sell you watches.
Yes.
Where you're getting emails about pre-owned.
Yes.
So I want to talk originally about, I guess, initially, how do we feel about Hodinkee sort of getting back to their roots and focusing on stories?
I think it's very exciting. Hodinkee has definitely been the North Star in terms of just watch media or watch influence, where we get our information, where we get our influence, where we get our passion.
Right.
Hodinkee is definitely a brand that has influenced so many people to actually want to get into watch content.
Facts.
Watch media. We're huge fans of them.
Or even just collecting watches. I mean, I think what they did for the culture was huge. I remember, I go back to like what Ben said when he was here. He talks about how John Mayer said that Hodinkee democratized watch collecting, because prior to Hodinkee, it was about what you could afford.
Yes.
And post Hodinkee, it's really about what you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's also like a huge thing. I think the idea of collecting watches has changed a bit, right? Mm-hmm. You don't have to have that grand complication paddock to consider yourself a collector.
Not at all.
You don't have to spend.
I'm almost embarrassed I'm wearing this now.
But there's still a place, in your collection, right, for $50 watches, $500 watches.
Yeah, I was wearing a Casio just the other day.
Yeah,
A1000.
Yeah, which also kind of stems from just the essence. Like, if you've been doing this for as long as you have, especially us collecting at young ages, you're talking 10, 11, 12 years old. I mean, there's no way that you're wearing a Rolex on your wrist. So you're wearing a Casio, you're wearing a G-Shock.
Yeah, of course.
You're wearing a Flick Flack, a Swatch. You're wearing those pieces that I would have to say is accessible to all and enjoyed by all, no matter what level of collecting you're at.
No, and they've really done that for the culture. I was definitely happy to read Ben's message.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was timely, because they found themselves in a space where it felt like it was becoming more about what we can sell you, as opposed to
what we can tell you.
That's a great way of putting it. And they're in a place right now where we know what they've went through. Yes, they've downsized a bit, but they still have an incredibly talented crew of writers.
Yes.
Shout out to our friend Mark, who's writing some amazing stuff over there right now. Malika just recently dropped an episode. Yeah. I mean, not an episode, an article about if baguette watches, might be seeing the end of their trend. So there's really like a lot of really great stories coming out of Hodinkee still.
Mm-hmm.
It's great to see Ben back active.
Yeah.
In that way, I can't wait to read some more articles that he puts out. But I was really, really happy to hear about them going back to what made them who they are.
Yes. Yes.
Now, as for the Crown and Caliber situation, I think it's safe to say we think that was a good move.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I totally get them trying to capitalize off of the moment, that we had 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And watches where it was like everything was sort of, you could flip your grandmother's.
You found a watch in a sock drawer.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like you could flip anything.
Yes.
And, consumer habits at that time, like people were just buying watches like it was nobody's business.
Yes.
And they were buying everything.
Mm-hmm.
But it was interesting to me when they purchased this pre-owned business.
Mm-hmm.
I always felt like Hodinkee, and I think that they should exist in the watch retail space.
Yes.
But I feel like they had an opportunity, during that time to maybe be, still a authority on pre-owned watches, but I don't think they had to take any inventory on. I think they could have done a consignment situation and maybe invested and authentication, because we see that's like a thing now, right? And you got a lot of companies popping up, and many of them do it very well. Shout out to our friends over at Bezel.
Yes.
They do it exceptionally well. I've purchased watches from them. I have tons of friends, and we have members of our audience who have purchased watches from them. But I think they sort of missed out on the opportunity to do that. I think they'll have an opportunity to do something like that in the future if they want. But that wasn't who they were.
I was gonna say the same.
Right?
I was gonna say the same, because that's really not what I think the traditional follower of Hodinkee is looking for. I think they're looking for cool stories. I think they're looking for authenticity. I think they're looking for a place that is safe for them, right? To enjoy their hobbies, because we all know that collecting watches, right, is weird for some people, or to even like talk about watches. I laugh with friends that aren't into watches as much, and they're like, where did this all stem from? Like, you guys talk about watches, and Hodinkee was always a place for us to nerd out.
Oh, for sure.
Them getting into the retail side of the business, I think, to your point, right? It's, in theory, it's a great idea.
Yeah.
But they had to go back to the drawing board and see how they'd be able to make it make sense for them. And maybe dive in all the way in, and buying a retailer might have just been a little too deep.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I think, listen, if I were in their shoes, I might have done the same thing. There was a lot of opportunity there. They had just gotten they did another sort of like investment run. When you have a startup, that's always the thing that you face, right? Like, do you invest in the future? Or do you invest in an opportunity that exists right now to put that money to use to generate more revenue so that you can secure your future?
Yeah.
Essentially, right? And it's less of a bet. And it was a gamble I think a lot of different companies took. They took it. I think, though, what nobody's talking about, Hodinkee gets a lot of flack about all of this that transpired. But I think the piece that people are missing is that they've built a strong enough brand that can withstand that event.
Yes.
Right? Like, what they went through could have killed a lot of brands. It would have killed a lot of brands.
Yes.
And so it speaks to the power of this brand, Hodinkee, that exists in this place, that's responsible for a lot of the wonderful things that are happening right now in the watch space.
Yeah.
That could weather that storm. And that's impressive to me.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny too, because, we'll this kind of ties into just like the state of the watch market.
Right.
And we've seen ebbs and flows, ups and downs, and, watches maybe becoming more accessible or not being accessible at all. And so I think it was the right time to kind of get out.
Yeah.
And then reassess, and then hit it the second time around.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. Ready for the shoot. Yo, man, what you doing?
I'm bidding on watches on getbezel.com.
What you bidding on?
Yo, don't even worry about it. I just want to watch.
What you win?
Listen. I just told you. Go to getbezel.com or download the Bezel app at the App Store. Don't worry about it.